Watch Dr. Drew's new show at 9 on HLN. Weeknights on HLN.
I have enough trouble keeping one wife happy. How do you do it with four? How do you juggle your time? What's the secret?
I keep my time even and fair, and my wives are dedicated to it as well.
You said in that clip we just saw that you had adopted this faith. I believe your wives were raised in polygamous families. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And this is not something you were raised with?
I wasn't raised in it. I adopted the belief when I was about 14 and didn't know that there was a venue to live it in. And by the time I was 21, I had found a faith that actually believed in the principle.
Does your family of origin?
Dr. Drew,
yes, please.
You know, I actually didn't grow up in the faith either. I grew up in the Mormon church, the LDS church. I adopted this faith in my early 20s.
And Cody, were you in the LDS church as well?
Yes, I was. I grew up in the LDS church.
Now, I am a huge fan of the show Big Love. I really love that show. And the reason I like it is that it's describing what the reality of what the kinds of interpersonal struggles that a household like yours would have. And in that program, there's a lot of consternation about being rejected by the mainstream LDS community. Are you finding a lack of support there? Can you tell me about that?
We're going to give you a little bit of a taste of this year. I actually went back to my hometown where I grew up, met with some of my old friends, and kind of opened myself to them to kind of say, hey, Cody, what have you been doing? Why did you do this? And so we get to see kind of some of their displeasure with it and my explanation of why I did it.
Can you share with me what a lot of that negativity is based upon? What's the sort of main complaint you're hearing?
Well, most faiths or religions think that they're the only one, they're the right one.
What would you say to people that perhaps you, having been raised in a polygamous environment, somehow poisoned your sense of what a real relationship was? What would you say to people that say something like that?
I don't think that's a very accurate argument, because anybody in any sort of relationship or lifestyle was raised a certain way. You know, they were either raised into a monogamous family, and so this is why this is familiar to them. So you could say, well, maybe they could have been poisoned that way. You know, so it's, in my mind, it's kind of the same thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to ask an indelicate question, perhaps. Where does your stamina come from? Maybe that's the right way to ask it.
You know what? Okay, your capacity grows. It's not something you know, when you have a child, most men would say, oh my goodness, the first child, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. Oh, I'm going to have a baby. It's very intimidating. And then they might feel the same way with the second child. But eventually you develop the capacity to do it. And so,
to love them?
Yeah, to have the children, to love the children. And so we have grown in our capacity to be a family. It wasn't something that just came natural the first day that we started this, or when I first met Mary, or when I decided to marry Janelle. It's all been something that we've grown into, and our capacity has grown to do that.
I got to say, though, I have triplets, and I got to say, when I first became aware that I was going to have triplets, I felt like I can't handle this. I'm not going to be able to make it. And I was right. I barely could. And I tried. My capacity grew a little bit. I don't know how you do. I don't know how you do 16.
I tell you, if we had jumped right into 20 years ago having 4 wives and 16 kids, all of a sudden, I don't know if any of us could have survived that. We really had to work into it all.
And then before we go to break,
we had 16 years to adjust to the 4 of us before Robin joined the family with her children.